This is Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. A choice we're going to mandate. Get it on. And welcome to the best hour or so in the universe. I'm Adam Carolla. It's Reasonable Doubt. And that's Mark Garrigus over there.
In the studio, looking up at the screen over here. I just asked Gary if that was the Armenian flag as our background. And what did you respond?
It's the gay flag, but they're very similar.
That isn't exactly the way you made the characterization before we got on air.
It was, well, here's something. It's funny. It's an old joke of mine, but it's not even a joke. I've never said it on stage. But it was one of my argument logic discussions that would probably work well in a courtroom, right. Which is I would go down to West Hollywood, and I started noticing that the gay flag was on the side of all the cruisers and the sheriffs in West Hollywood. Now, it's a jumbled gay flag. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I have.
And it's the shape of West Hollywood, except for no one knows what the shape of West Hollywood is.
I know. It looks kind of like an abstract Jackson Pollock.
Right. But it is the gay flag. And so I would say, what's a gay flag doing on the side of the cruiser? And then everyone would say to me, well, they have a lot of gay folks in their community, and that's the community that they service. So what's wrong with the gay flag? And then I would go, Glendale's got a lot of Armos.
So
should we put the Armenian flag on the side of the Glendale cruisers? Because I bet Glendale's got more Armos than WeHo's got gays.
I think that's without a doubt.
I would shut everyone up immediately because they would all go, that's a horrible idea. And I'd say, all right, well, it's the exact same logic.
What would we put on the sheriff's car for La Cañada?
I think we put Yosemite Sam saying back off. Remember that? Remember those old mud flaps? That's the best and only thing that should be on.
A La Cañada sheriff's car is a Yosemite Sam?
Yeah, it was like the mud flaps. He had 2 6-shooters in each. He had a 6-shooter in each hand. He had that big red handlebar mustache, and it just said back off. That should be on the hood of every La Cañada cruiser.
How about Burbank? What would you put on the side of Burbank?
Burbank would be,
by the way, in the studio,
a taxpayer.
A taxpayer, right. Twitter cracks me up. I mean, you have more fun on Twitter than any human I know. Your favorite now is Pussies, which is my version of Hater Ho, because a Hater Ho or a Hater Joe is somebody who just knows nothing and just, spouts something off, Or what's your other one, Hero?
Yeah, everyone's a hero. Do because they do this stupid thing all the time where they go, you go, we need to reopen the schools. And then they go, I know 6 people that got COVID and my grandfather almost died. And I'd be like, no one asked you who the fuck you knew who had COVID. We're asking. It's like saying we need to reopen the airport. And then they go, Buddy Holly died in a plane crash. Like, okay, hero. That's nice to know. So under your policies, we do what again?
Well, it is the definition of a non sequitur. And I encourage them to take a look. I had this morning, I was on for Tinhorn Flats to dissolve the preliminary injunction. And the argument was, look, Judge, basically they asked to barricade the place. You denied that, and they barricaded anyway. And they're arresting the son of the owner for violation of a court order. The only court order I'm aware of, Judge, is your court order. So what did he do to violate your court order, and why didn't they bring it to you? So the judge wouldn't dissolve the preliminary injunction, but he did admit, number one, I'm not dealing with the city of Burbank's seizure of the property. I said, Judge, is this an asset forfeiture? No, it isn't an asset forfeiture. I also said, are you dealing with the civil rights violation of arresting this guy repeatedly and he clearly no. And I said, okay. And so what is the point of having a preliminary injunction if they are just doing whatever they want to do, the city of Burbank anyway? And he said, well, they didn't have a health permit. And I said, yeah, but we already went through this. The health permit was revoked by the county, and I'm trying to get heard on the appeal. And then nobody would listen to the legal argument at the county. And city of Burbank has that speaking of heroes, what's the name? The con man Constantine, the eighth wonder of the world. the eighth autistic wonder of the world. He's
on the spectrum.
Yeah, and apparently proud of it. And God forbid if he can tell it, he can say it, but if you mention it, then you're a despicable human.
I've somebody asked me if I was a racist, and I said I'm on the spectrum, but I don't consider myself a racist. I do have certain thoughts about certain groups, so I guess that would put me on the spectrum. You know
So I make these arguments. The judge says no, they're going to give notice. I'm not going to dissolve it. I say that's fine. I hang up the phone because it's a virtual hearing. Because by the way, even though you the city of Burbank is closing down outdoor dining, which now every epidemiologist admits, including the CDC, that there was never any science on it to begin with. And Judge Chalfant was prophetic in his order that is, by the way, currently the California Supreme Court, I took it to the Supreme Court, they extended time to consider the issue. We'll see if they do it. But that's neither here nor there. Burbank Court 6 months ago ordered me in person to court, and now we're doing something where Burbank is keeping the place closed and they barricaded and surrounded it. But now the judge has said, no, that order that you arrested Lucas on, that has nothing to do with me. I'm not pining on that. And seizing the place and barricading it, I didn't authorize that, which is fantastic. Thank you very much, City of Burbank. You just gave Barrett, your classmate, and his family a righteous federal lawsuit for damages because the judge just said none of this was based on my order.
The Tinhorn Flats, which is about 1.5 miles from where we're at right now, has a fence that's been core drilled into the concrete sidewalk. Like, I went to examine it as if someone with a construction background. There's a few ways you can do it. They went the heavy-duty route. It's an 8-foot chain link fence that just went all the way around the place. So what you're saying is Burbank wasn't acting on the orders of a judge. They were just going full cowboy.
They went to the judge originally and said, Judge, we want you to order this. Judge would not. He said, I'm not going to order a barricade. It's a public safety issue. Guess what they did? They then invoked Burbank Municipal Code saying it was a public safety issue. So the judge ruled it's not. Mm-hmm. They then invoked public safety, which he just found was not, to barricade the place. This I can hardly wait to have Constantine on the stand because we're going to sue him personally as well as the city.
Anthony's his last name.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony on the stand. That's that may be the new show. And then Twitter is like, why didn't Garrigus send somebody else to take the fall? Because there's a tentative ruling. He had a tentative. As if I'm going to send, like, I care that I'm making a record because I've got 3 moves down the hall. And
what does that mean?
Saying,
what does that mean? Send someone else
send an associate so that I didn't have to take the L. As if I'm concerned about, about doing my job and setting the table.
Right. Yeah.
How'd you like to go through life worried about taking an L as opposed to fighting for a client or fighting for what's right? How would you like to be that shallow?
Well, I mean, obviously, when you take a look at your roster, it's a murderer's row of people that would be, if they had Twitter at the time. I mean, when you were doing Scott Peterson, if there was Twitter, my God, you'd be in therapy.
Well,
zooming into this.
Can you imagine
right now.
when I had Scott and Michael Jackson? The fights on Twitter would just be.
My
can you
God.
imagine? No, I mean, they're still to this day. They're fighting about the Neverland documentary. When you and I called it out for it being a whatever, I must get 50 of those a day.
So, you said federal case.
Yeah.
As it pertained to Tinhorn Flats. How does this become federal?
We're going to sue for the unlawful taking for eminent domain. I'll give you heard it here first, City of Burbank. And us will be in litigation for quite a while because the City of Burbank has chosen to make some, you know how they always tell parents are always saying, don't make a poor decision. Somebody needs to school the City of Burbank on making poor decisions.
City of Burbank has always been overly aggressive as it pertains to taxpayers and policing of taxpayers, and it's something that I stumbled onto years and years and years ago, and I've always knew it. And anytime I would talk to someone who got a chicken shit jaywalking ticket or whatever, exactly. I'd always go, where? In Burbank? And they go, yeah, I was in Burbank. How'd you know where I was? Because they hand out more chicken shit. I looked it up once. The city of Burbank writes more jaywalking tickets in a calendar year than the state of Louisiana does in 10 years.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, the city of Burbank is got to be, I mean, I like my opposing counsel and the city attorney. I enjoy dealing with both of them. They're high quality lawyers. But the city council and whoever elects these people, I mean, I guess it's the citizens or the tiny minority that vote. They really, and it's been ever since we were in high school, it's been that way. Burbank has always been kind of out of the mainstream and a bizarre place.
Yeah, just overly aggressive in enforcements of any laws.
Right.
That's always how Burbank has been. And again, I think people like order and they like safety, but jaywalkers and honky-tonks aren't the problem. And that's would be a good name for an album, a country album.
Maybe Awesome Dawson will want to record that. I mean, it'd be something, right?
So do you have any?
Wait, I've got, you want to, should we go
predictions with this case?
Predictions, yeah. I think at the end of the day, the city of Burbank is going to write Barrett LePagin a large check. That's my prediction.
And is it because they just couldn't take their foot off the accelerator? They couldn't stop themselves.
It's exactly right. We gave them every opportunity in the world, and at some point somebody's going to slap their head like one of those, I could have had a V8, I could have settled this case. I had a resolution. And that's, the trials and lawsuits, there was a Superior Court judge, I assume he's still alive, although I haven't seen him in years, Alex Williams III. He used to say, and it's a great expression, that lawsuits and trials are basically because one side's an asshole. And he got admonished for that, I think, by the Judicial Council. But it's absolutely true. It's basically because somebody's trying to prove something because they're an asshole, or a lawyer's trying to prove something. Because if you've done enough trials, if you've been around the civil justice or criminal justice system long enough, you understand that trials are kind of the last resort. It's basically because somebody's not being reasonable. Usually, if both sides are reasonable, there's a way to resolve a case.
All right, so predictions are they're going to cut a check, and it's really the taxpayers.
Well, I will give you another example. We're sitting in Glendale. I remember maybe 10 years ago, I had a case where they had arrested a young Armenian kid. In
Glendale?
In Glendale. Shocking. For murder, for first-degree special circumstance murder. I showed them within a week that I had his phone records. This is back in the days when you could get the cell phone towers. I had his phone. I had my expert do it. I had the expert show that he was 20 miles away at the time. I didn't know it at the time. I later learned in the discovery that one of the cops had basically told the poor mother of the victim who was shot and killed, identify this guy, pointing to my client who was in the photographic lineup, and don't worry, the district attorney won't file it unless he's got other evidence. So she made that identification. Well, we go to the preliminary hearing. I tell the DA at the time, I said, the last thing you want to do is have this poor mother identify my client here. You know and I know this is the wrong guy. And by the way, if we ever find the right guy, you've completely screwed this case up. Didn't bother that DA. Has the mother come in. The mother identifies my client. Gets held to answer. Finally, they do a DNA on a baseball cap that was left at the scene by the shooter. It was a home invasion in Glendale. They do the DNA. Guess what? They find the right guy. They put that guy who happens to be in custody in a lineup in the county jail. And the mother, who previously identified my client, absolutely sure, she sees the guy they have in the lineup, and she vomits in the thing. She realized what happened. They did to her, to my client's kid, basically they tried to kill him. So we sue the city of Glendale. And I'm telling you, I remember the city council people. I talked to them. I talked to the city attorney. I'll make this case go away. write a check for $250,000. This poor kid was in custody for 8 months, blah, 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 blah. Give him, $3,000 a day for however long he was in custody, right? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't do it. We go to federal court. We sue. We're in front of Judge Snyder, I believe. And the jury comes back. This is one of my favorites. They divided up the guilt phase, whether the Glendale PD and the two cops were liable, and the punitive damage phase, because you don't want the jury combining them. You don't want them to assess punitives. The jury, even though the jury not only found them guilty, but before we got to punitive damages, imposed punitive damages on the cops for being lying sacks. And the judge sends them back, says, no, you can't do that. Sure enough, they come back. They hit the city of Glendale for multiple of $1 million and punitive damages. And
multi-million dollars. And the jurors, the jurors say? They said, if you had had the district attorney here on trial, we would have hit the district attorney too. They were that pissed. And it was a smart jury. It's the first jury I've ever had that had 6 postgraduate jurors, meaning an educated jury. They took it all the way to the Ninth Circuit, thinking they were going to get out of it. By the time it was said and done, they wrote a massive 7-figure check, all because nobody would listen. They just decided they were going to do what they were going to do. Yeah, there was a lot of it going along. It always makes me think about the mayor of Oakland who found the rings hanging from the tree at the park and thought they represented nooses and was going to get the feds involved for a hate crime investigation. And then the black man who hung the rings said, no, he hung them to exercise. And she said, we're still moving ahead with the investigation, which is like, well, we're still going to squander a bunch of taxpayer money.
Don't bother me with the facts. I'll never forget being in the Ninth Circuit mediation. And I can't talk about mediation because that's privileged. But it's astonishing to me just that only somebody who's using taxpayer funds can tell you to go pound sand because there's no consequence to it. They can make a decision that will cost the city. They could have gotten out of the case for $250, but it doesn't matter. We're just gonna put what was yours? Put your foot on the gas, and we just can't take it off.
Yeah, I notice it. Obviously, it's woven into the sort of fabric which makes it a bad system, which is you're spending someone else's money, so you're not making decisions that are rational business-based decisions like everyone else has to do.
Anybody else would sit there and make a decision that was based on a cost-benefit analysis.
Right.
Am I going to pay the lawyers to continue this? Am I going to and why am I paying outside counsel, meaning you've got city attorneys?
Also, there's two things you factor in. You factor in money and you factor in time.
Yeah.
Neither of which is a factor for them, which is we'll take as much time, we'll waste as much time as we want, and we'll spend as much money as we want, and it doesn't really matter to them. If you take that, if you removed, if you found that in the private sector, it would be a world-class shit show. If everyone just said, I'll spend as much money, and I don't care how many days at the office I miss, I'll go into court, or I'll go do this, or I'll change the venue, I'll go to Texas and fight the patent trolls or whatever. It would just be society would implode. It would come undone.
Exactly right. And by the way, there are metrics that you can use. One of the metrics would be, a business. When you look at a business and you value a business, or if you say the business is being run right, you say, give me the EBITDA, the earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation. What if you were to try to run a city like that? What is the employment rate in the city? Am I balancing the budget? Am I underwater? Or do I have a surplus? What am I spending on? I mean, those kinds of metrics. You do it if you were in the private sector. You could just as easily do it with the municipality.
I agree. All right.
So,
we have
Gary.
Stories, Gary?
We do, Gary. And
we do. Where do you guys want to start?
Let's start with, because this is interesting, as we're taping this, it's Friday. And I was telling Adam I was on right-wing TV this morning, Newsmax with Espresso with Baby Bump, and who's Rachel Roller, who I think is is going to go places.
She must be hot.
She is hot.
I know when you compliment a woman's brains, it means she's hot. I know who you think is
savage.
He is so savage.
Did I see, by the way, on social media, did you guys get together for Adam's birthday, or was that an old picture?
That was an old picture, but I did try to shame Don Julio into. I don't know if you saw this. Tried to shame them into being a sponsor on Beyond. Do you have the picture?
I will put it up in just a moment.
And the tweet. Okay, so I had predicted that we would get a verdict in the Tibbetts case today. Tibbetts is the
Mollie Tibbetts.
Mollie Tibbetts, who was murdered, and they were trying the undocumented alien for the murder. And in a complete surprise to me, they put him on the stand, and his explanation for what happened, because he had. There we are.
Oh, there we are. Yeah.
Now,
must be from
that was
Christmas.
Happy Birthday. Yeah, that was from Christmas. But then there was a subsequent where I'm calling out Don Julio 1942, because I think that we've got enough pent up goodwill that they should sponsor the show.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, right? There we go. Let's see if you can. Can you read it, Adam? Can you see that?
Yeah, why Don Julio hasn't called yet to sponsor Reasonable Doubt, the Best Hour in the Universe is beyond us.
It's a little small. It says the best 15 minutes in the universe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He's going after Beyond fans.
Sorry.
So,
yeah,
it's a good one.
I mean, look at that. You're there. I mean, that's an endorsement. What would your agent charge for something like that?
Oh,
right?
Thousands.
Tens of thousands, right?
Tens of thousands. He said, Adam Carolla doesn't roll over in bed for under 50 grand.
Exactly.
James Baby Doll Dixon one time, I don't know why you'd love this, but you'd love it. He goes, did NBC or Comedy Central, did they make an offer? And he said, yeah. And he goes, it was so insulting. I told him I wouldn't take it to you because it was that insulting. And he said, I'm not even going to tell Adam that's how insulting that offer is.
I love that. I like that a lot.
And I said to him, okay, what was the offer? And he goes, I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
I said, well, but I'm
By
glad
the way,
you told
for all
them,
you aspiring lawyers, that is an ethical violation. You're supposed to communicate any and all offers, but I probably said that same thing. I'm going to take it to the client and I'm going to tell them it's not only insulting, but fuck you. I mean, the idea that somehow
you're compelled to take it to the client.
Yeah, I'm compelled to take it to the client.
Adam, didn't you miss out on a guest spot on one of your favorite shows because of something like that? Entourage?
Yeah, I think they wanted me to be a guest on Entourage.
I think they wanted you to play the Artie Lang role.
Baby told him to pound sand.
Yeah.
Or something.
Damn,
I was like, I like that show.
There was one of the producers is Armo, and I was always offended that I never got. They brought some other lawyer in for a couple of episodes, and I was always offended. If I ever meet her, I'm going to slash her tires because I wanted that role.
All right, where were we?
So
okay,
Tibbetts.
So.
They put him on the stand.
They put him on the stand, and in order to explain, there were some things that need to be explained. First of all, he led the police to where her body was. That's what I would call a bad fact.
Right.
They found DNA, her DNA, and blood in the trunk of the car. Bad fact.
Right.
He also made admissions that he thought she was hot or something like that, or had was attractive, but he blacked out and doesn't remember the killing. That was what he said pre-trial. Then he took the stand and he told a narrative of two men, strangers, who
covered head to toe. Yeah. Covered head to toe with face coverings, long sleeves, and they forced him to kill her, put her in the trunk of the car, and then they forced him to take him to the cornfield. But he has no information to give because they were covered for the entire ordeal.
Yeah.
Sounds spurious.
And I said I had predicted Fridays, jurors in cases like this, that's the bewitching hour. And sure enough, Friday, the jury came back. How long were they out total, Gary?
A total of about 7 hours. I think it was 4 hours on Thursday evening and 3 hours Friday morning. And I actually told Adam about an hour before we started, I think there's going to be a verdict coming down if we're lucky. And by the time Adam was out of his ACS recording, we in fact had that verdict.
It's a tough case. I mean, if you're a defense lawyer and your client, you've got the blood, you've got the DNA in the trunk, you've got a admission that you were involved, you lead the police to the body. To him, taking the stand was a gutsy kind of call. I never expected that. I admit that I thought that there was no way.
Well, it feels kind of Hail Mary-ish, right?
Yeah, that was why I never expected it. I don't know what the thought was, because
isn't the thought that we're screwed? I mean, this is a low percentage thing, but it's the only percentage thing we have.
Yeah, but I think for an appellate issue, they did move the case, change of venue to a more rural area. But the jury selection and the questionnaires revealed that may not have solved the problem. Once the defendant takes the stand, or the accused takes the stand, then, a lot of that kind of drifts away, because appellate courts are, okay, you took the stand, you testified, the jury heard your story, they didn't buy it. What was so infirm about this process?
Oh, I see. That's the danger.
Yeah.
All right. So he's
that's
found guilty.
He's found guilty. Next up, Gary's got another story that's very interesting.
Why would you ever lead cops to a body?
You wouldn't.
You just wouldn't.
No. In fact, usually what happens is the defense lawyer will cut a deal and say, if you take the death penalty or if you take life without parole off the table, we will tell you where the body is, or something along those lines. Yeah, I've seen that happen. I've done that on occasion. So,
all right, so we got a couple stories here that are going to get Adam pretty fired up, and then we can bring it back to a more newsy story at the end. But the first one I want to touch on here, I like this a lot. A New York Times science and health reporter has had to delete her Twitter after tweeting, let's see here, that the lab theory has racist roots. She said, quote, "Someday we will stop talking about the lab leak theory and maybe even admit its racist roots. But alas, that day is not here yet."
Do we want this person reporting on COVID? Like this is what has been going on this entire
time. I don't embrace the conspiracy theories, but just like, Dr. Fauci, who is, as Drew says, the North Star, has now come around to the fact that, hey, if there were 3 people with COVID-like symptoms in that lab in 2019 who were hospitalized, and like you and I said, and then all of a sudden China knows enough to shut down Wuhan like it was Chernobyl, what does that tell you? Does that tell you there was an infected bat, or does that tell you there's something else going on?
I was saying on the on ACS
the
last week, the mothership, I said this exact same thing as the Chandra Levy case. They had a guy in jail for abducting and raping and killing
2 other people who were
women
wearing Walkmans,
who were jogging on that trail, and the DA comes out and she has a press conference and says, "Do not even think about the guy who's currently incarcerated for the exact same crime. Don't even think about it." Really? Yeah. I have thoughts about it. You have a Wuhan virus lab that's up the street, and
that's studying, by the way, coronaviruses.
Yes, here's how you know. By the way, here's how I know everything now. All I do is watch CNN, and whatever they're trying to get you to think, I know it's the opposite. I know it's the opposite. This is all Trump derangement syndrome. Trump said it's from the lab in Wuhan, and CNN and New York Times and LA Times and USA Today went, fuck that. No, it isn't. And it's like, first off, does any part of that resemble journalism or reporting?
It was astonishing. I never watched this, but I watched it because I was home, the nightly news with Lester Holt on NBC. And they actually dropped that within the last week, as kind of an aside, that the former president had floated this theory a year ago.
Debunked theory. Who debunked it? How could you, first off, how could you say debunked about a theory? China's not cooperating. They're not letting people investigate. They're lying to everyone, as they always do. And they have a virus lab in Wuhan. How could it possibly be a debunked theory? It's like saying, we found a poisonous churro. Well, maybe it came from the churro factory that's up the street. No, that's been debunked.
Right. Or
you debunked it?
I got E. coli after eating the cheese, the Mexican cheese, which is, remember Mexican cheese in L.A.?
So.
Yes. So, But God forbid it's racist if I call it Mexican cheese and I got sick.
This is a new and sort of slippery slope, which is the news. And, I've been here for years with you with my conspiracy theories.
I love your conspiracy theories.
Mainly turn out to be correct.
But I was going to say, it's the conspiracy theory morphs into crystal brain, and then I have to admit that I was wrong.
Well, what they do is they say, we don't want to spread AIDS. So let's announce that it's an equal opportunity killer, that a heterosexual couple could get it every bit as easily as a gay couple could. So in order to do good, we will lie and we'll distort facts and truths. Or we'd like people to quit smoking. All right. 57,000 people die of secondhand smoke every year. Well, that's not true. Yeah, I know, but we want people to quit smoking. And it's like, we don't like Trump. Okay, well, we got to get rid of him for the greater good, like smoking and AIDS. So then we're all just going to fucking get the toadies to line up and just start saying debunked theory and Tom Cotton doesn't know what he's talking about. And they all just, in unison, they all just rise up. Like Hunter Biden's laptop? That's a Russian hoax. That's a Russian hoax. Like it is. How do you know? How do you haven't investigated his laptop? You haven't investigated the Wuhan lab there. You haven't investigated. You just know all this stuff doesn't exist.
This is what it is. This is what's so frustrating for me, who I am the self-professed, lefty, lifelong. However, I did take a logic class at one point, and logic and persuasion and oratory and rhetoric are something that I study and consistently. There is something called the ad hominem, a fallacy that is ad hominem, where you don't attack the argument, you attack the man. That, to some degree, we were talking about Twitter. That is all day long on Twitter. Right. All you have to do to diminish or say this argument can't be right is because of who is articulating it. Right. Now, I understand you can do, and let's see if we can do the mental gymnastics here. You can do source criticism. You can say, well, I read this story on CNN.com or I read it on Daily Caller, and you can have the same kind of skepticism. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. One has got it one view, one's got the other view. They're on the opposite sides of the spectrum. However, why can't you say, okay, I recognize Daily Caller is saying this. I'm not going to buy into it, and I'll take some of the language that I think is rhetorical, and I'll separate it out mentally, and I will still examine the idea of Wuhan. Yeah. And why can't I also say, wait a second, a year and a half ago, or 14 months ago, this was being poo-pooed. Why was it being poo-pooed? Why were we saying that this was not likely? It wasn't plausible. Blah blah blah. Was there an axe to grind there? And was it because Trump articulated it, or Pompeo articulated it? And we know that Trump's a dick and Pompeo's a fat ass, and so we're not going to listen to it. Just divorce the thought or the theory from the speaker and try to engage in some kind of analysis. I don't know why that's so. Why is that so tough?
Well, you're intellectually honest, and I agree. And there's some cases that have a little more nuance than others, but it's this thing, you take whatever's going on the southern border. Everyone was insane when Trump was president about kids in cages, and AOC was going over there and taking pictures, crying by the chain link fence. Nary a word now with 10 times as many kids in cages. So are you interested in kids in cages, or are you not interested in kids in cages? And the answer is we're interested in things that benefit our theme. That's what's going on. And also there's a scary new thing, which is all these bullshit fact-checking sites like PolitiFact and stuff pop up, and then CNN goes, Tom Cotton said it may have emanated from a lab in Wuhan. PolitiFact gave it 19 Pinocchios, so it's been disproven. It's like, oh, the other group that hates Tom Cotton said it was debunked. That's an interesting vetting process, CNN.
It's clear to anybody who follows journalism that journalism has reached the point in the public's perception that lawyers once occupied. It's almost like journalists have supplanted lawyers.
They're advocates for one side or the other.
One side or the other. And
well,
and by the way, investigative journalists, that's almost laughable.
Yeah, it's basically you should take a look at all sides and try to reach your own conclusions. But I will say, as it pertains to COVID, just in the one angle of COVID, Fox had a much higher batting average than CNN did. CNN started, well, first off, just a lot of the science, like, not going outdoors, shutting down the beaches. I was laughing thinking about Gretchen Whitmer. She said, pull the boats out of the water. She had no boating. Boating, for Christ's sake.
Nobody is going to top, in my humble opinion, Los Angeles and that poor paddleboarder out of in the bay. I mean,
you cannot top that.
You cannot top that.
You can only tie it.
That is insanity under any circumstances. Has already a year out being mocked. 10 years from now, they'll say that's why the entire city we should have put a Wuhan dome over this because of the insanity. Now you've got But by the way, are you going to give Joe Biden the credit he deserves? You know why?
He's looking into the Wuhan.
Or
he's chocolate chip ice cream.
No, keep going.
Trying to think, what did Joe Biden do?
Oh
Gary?
My God!
Gary doesn't know. I will.
Who's going to be the new ambassador to India?
Sorry,
right. We'd already talked about this with Drew.
Oh my God! Well, look. What he's done to downtown L.A., Calcutta, here I come. I mean, this is...
Now, Mark, if it makes you feel any better, I will say that we highlighted your tweet because that was how I learned the news. You quoting that tweet and saying, thank you, President Biden.
Thank you, President Biden.
It was amazing.
The guy he's on a level of FDR. I mean, for what he's going to do for Los Angeles. Although I saw today, somebody wrote an op-ed with a straight face. I swear to God that the city council should appoint Jerry Brown as the mayor. And I said, okay, if that happens, then I just have to leave town. And mind you, I was somebody who supported Jerry Brown until he lost his mind. And what is he? I mean, he literally, you watched a guy who had one of the most curious, intellectually diverse breadth and depth of minds, and we just watched him circle the drain, didn't we?
Yeah, he was governor from, 72 to 78 or something. Then he took like 35 years off, and then he came back. But now he came back as like Bernie Sanders, essentially. He
was governor 75 to 83, and then 2011 to 2019.
And I'll tell you, I once considered him a friend, and he's lied to my face, and in some ways, he bequeathed us our fearless leader now, Gavin Newsom.
But he used to bang Linda Ronstadt, so...
Yeah, but that was back in the day. That was when I liked him. That's when he had game, and then he hadn't swirled the drain. I mean, he's intellectually, I hate to say this, but he's feeble. And why anybody would want to really, that's what we got to do. We got to recycle Jerry Brown as mayor of Los Angeles.
I would rather Arlie Ermey's corpse govern Los Angeles than Jerry Brown. That I feel like he would be a more effective leader.
And the idea of Mike Feuer, the LA city attorney, becoming mayor. I mean, where do they? These are the candidates. This is our best and brightest. This is who we're sending to the mayoral office.
It's like they have a barrel of spoiled pickles, and when they pull one out and that spoiled pickle shits the bed, they go, all right, back to the barrel. And it's like, no, they're all bad. They're all in this barrel. We need some guy who's a businessman who's run a business, who understands how to budget and
understands,
timelines.
By the way, you're not going to have a functioning city with businesses that pay taxes if you have an outdoor insane asylum. I mean, That's what it is. It's an outdoor insane asylum.
San Francisco just had 17 Rite Aids close.
Right. Well, I was one of the pharmacies. Which was it, Gary? Was it Rite Aid or was it? And you know why? Because they said, and this is astonishing to me also, people said, well, that, they're just trying to take down San Francisco. No, they are a profit-making entity, and I think it was Walgreens. And they shut down.
It was Walgreens.
It was Walgreens. And they shut down 17 places because of the retail theft was crippling them. And guess what? They don't even, at a certain point, what are you going to have your employees get into it with them? And then you're going to have the employee get injured, and then you're going to be liable for that? That makes little or no sense.
And then the politicians that enact these horrible policies get on their high horse and it's like, hey, this is where grandma gets her prescription meds. How dare you, Walgreens? It's like, hey, we're trying to run a fucking business here.
Right. You want to subsidize? Write a check. It's great. I love it.
I was thinking about this.
Wait, you want the worst mayor in? You think Garcetti's bad? I have a nominee for ambassador to what's the farthest jurisdiction? Timbuktu. You know who the mayor who Biden should consider, and it'd be perfect. Lori Lightfoot.
Lori Lightfoot.
Mayor
let's get her a little further. Let's say the Federated States of Micronesia.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Lori Lightfoot, by the way, where's that story? Was it apocryphal or true?
That's a lawsuit.
No, there
right?
was one where they were called to her house because her wife
Who's that?
had apparently, the Chicago PD was apparently called to her house. I think, Gary, if you can find this. Couple of weeks back, I'm surprised she weathered this storm, given the fact that Chicago is in such dire straits. But her wife apparently belted her. What was reported, because apparently they caught Lori messing around and dipping the pen. Gary, can you find this story?
I'm looking for it. It's probably pretty well buried here. I'm still looking.
Okay. Anybody who's heard this story, I wish they would send it to us, because I just saw a fleeting.
I've not heard this one.
Yeah. Well, she's got another one right now, another story or controversy. She seems to be a magnet for controversies and dual positions. She would not be interviewed by. Well, what was it? She set down some ground rules?
Yeah, she would only do interviews with people of color, and she's now being sued by the Daily Caller because one of their journalists who's certified and has a good track record made 3 requests, and they wouldn't grant him an interview. So now she's going to have to face that in court.
Is an Armo a person of color?
Not in Glendale.
Which brings us full circle to the Armenian flag, a.k.a.
Just an annoying neighbor.
Yeah. With a loud car that's got glass packs on.
Oh, between the smoking and the aftershave, I can't fucking open my windows over here. I will. There is, Emmy, maybe you can look for Lori Lightfoot at the beginning of the pandemic. Got busted for having a hairstylist come over to the house or whatever. The same thing everyone did. Lock it all down.
Right.
And then they started doing their own thing.
I mean,
by
is
the
that
way,
true?
Well, a couple of things. Every Emmy's wife is a hairstylist, and
did she go door to door?
Yeah. Well, you shut down the salon. There's no woman in Los Angeles that's going to let her hair go for 17 months. You know what I mean? And so what are you going to do? You're going to start going and doing it in people's living rooms, right? So you do this thing now. The salon, theoretically, could have been space, could have had the lucite, could have had all the protocols.
By the way, cosmetologists, I represented the Beauty Federation. The training they go through, the certification they go through, geez, I mean, it's unbelievable.
Right.
They make cops look untrained.
But it's the same thing you do, which is like, lock everyone in the house, and then it spreads in the house by shutting down the beaches. It's retarded logic. But Lori Lightfoot got busted for getting her hair cut, which I don't judge that much. Everyone did it. She made the policy, but still she did the whole Gavin Newsom French Laundry thing. But it was her explanation of it that was insane.
I don't remember this, and I'm
this is
always
excellent.
in the weeds of the COVID hypocrisy.
Oh, yeah, Gavin Newsom sort of just ate it. You know, he was like, I shouldn't have done it. There were too many people.
Right,
blah,
and
blah,
Sheila Kuehl just lied her way out of it. Remember hers?
I do. I actually found the story you were talking about from Lightfoot. It was about 4 weeks ago, and she actually had to come out and address. She was trending on Twitter for like 4 straight days, and then she finally came out and addressed it, and it seems like it sort of went away.
Really? Yeah. But it was that she got clocked by her wife?
It's vague, but there's no real articles written about it. It's all just tweets. And then she came out and she called, let's see, here's the quote. She called the chatter homophobic, racist, and misogynistic rumors.
Really?
The trifecta.
Was it?
Really?
But was it? But did it happen? Did the police get called out?
It's
we don't.
hard
is
to
that
discern.
Right? Anti-law enforcement.
So, listen, you don't need to check the crime ticker and the stats. Last time I was in Chicago, I was eating outdoors at whatever the famous steak place is right there on
Not
Michigan.
Ditka's, the other one.
Yeah, the other one.
Down the street from Ditka's.
Give me a sec. I know what you're talking
we'll figure
about.
it out. Anyway, I was just sitting out. They wouldn't let you in. You know, sitting outside on a Friday night. Guys were on ATVs,
Gibsons,
dirt bikes, and dune buggies, literally just riding wheelies down the street, like complete impunity. Like they knew they weren't getting pulled over. No cop was ever going to pull one of those guys off. And they were literally, and one of the guys in the quad runners, I mean, these are full off-road vehicles, no lights, no signals, no nothing, hit a woman who was like walking across the street from the other restaurant. And I said, oh, it's on. Yeah. It's fucking Sodom and Gomorrah over here. Yeah, the Lori Lightfoot explanation of the haircut I found amazing because, like I said, the whole thing, it's like if you're gay and you're black, that means never having to say sorry. You just accuse everyone of being a racist. For
everybody who's going to say we're doing the same thing, remember we started this off with bidding bon voyage to Mayor Garcetti, who last time I looked is, well, I won't go there.
He's certainly white.
The stylist was wearing a mask and gloves, the mayor said in defense of her haircut during a press conference. Quote, I'm the public face of this city. I'm on the national media and I'm out in the public eye.
Oh, meaning that's what justifies?
It's the part after that. You can find the clip
I think what
somewhere.
people really... I think what really people want to talk about is we're talking about people dying here. We're talking about significant health disparities. I think that's what people care most about.
Oh.
Yeah. Still not that part. She still ended it. You can find footage of it, I think. Let me tell you about Geico first. I'll buy Gary a few seconds. Do you rent your home? Well, sure you do. And then there's your automotive policy. How about you bundle it up with Geico? Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners and renters insurance along with your automotive policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around the house. So go to geico.com, get a quote, and see just how much you could be saving when you get your bundle working at Geico. That is geico.com. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's footage of it. And Gary will find it, and I don't want to spoil it, but it was really. She didn't apologize, essentially.
No, and all you do
but it was
once
the
again
end part that's still the gem part.
And by the way, that same logical fallacy that I talked about, when you don't address the argument and you start calling people names, that's an ad hominem fallacious argument. That isn't addressing
essentially
the
just
argument.
Calls everyone a racist.
Or anti
lesbian or gay or whatever. But here's an interesting time we're living in. I've been saying to you for years, whether it's the Nicholas Sandmann thing and CNN and everyone's cutting checks now, or it's the Burbank City Council going, we're just going to put barbed wire around this business and throw them all out. Or it's Lori Lightfoot saying, I'm only going to talk to black and brown reporters. I'm not going to talk to any white reporters or Asian reporters. Don't they see the liability and all these insane moves? Because they get sued. Everyone comes back and sues them.
Because it's not their money. If you stripped them of
it's
this
CNN's
idea.
Money.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know why. Or the big tech firm that just fired some guy. Oh, you had a Trump bumper sticker on your truck. We're going to fire you. Like, don't they see the liability in any of that shit?
One of the ones that's very disturbing, and maybe we'll talk about it next week, was the the algorithm that was designed to suppress vaccine hesitancy. I'm not an anti-vaxxer by any means. In fact, I mock anti-vaxxers. But at the same time, there's something very pernicious about the idea of developing an algorithm that suppresses thoughts that you don't like or ideas you don't like. You know, I know today you may say, okay, I'm with it.
You're talking about the Project Veritas story.
Which is he here next week? Because
James O'Keefe.
Yeah, he is. And, you know, I've disagreed vehemently with him, and I've agreed at the same time. And I actually am looking forward to having him in studio and kind of picking his brain.
Facebook programmer basically blew a whistle on Facebook. He's been fired. But there's a rhythm where if you say anything, just stuff like, I've already had COVID, I don't think it's a good idea to get vaccinated, or maybe I got a 9-year-old son, should I get him? And then they log it they flag it as an anti-vaxxer.
There's certain words that trigger the algorithm, which then suppresses it so it gains no traction. That is Orwellian. That's the definition of Orwellian.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's where we're at.
We're so afraid of thought. Here we go. Gary's amazing. How did you find this so quick?
I'm not sure if this is going to have the tail end you want, but let's give it a try.
We are trying to do the best that we can under difficult circumstances. I am practicing social distancing. The woman who cut my hair had a mask, had gloves on. I'm practicing what I'm preaching and making sure. I don't typically take pictures these days, but we are trying to do everything we can to emphasize the messages around social distancing, washing your hands, staying at home. But I, as an elected official in the public face of the city, need to make sure that I am out there and visible through this crisis.
Oh, so it got cut off.
Staying indoors, washing your hands,
right.
Not going outside.
Yeah.
She's just like a litany of everything I was wrong about.
Well, here's an interesting thought experiment. So I will just go ahead and provide my own punchline. She says, and Gary can still find it somewhere, she said, I'm the face of the city.
She said it, right.
No, but after that, she goes, and I care a lot about my own personal hygiene. Oh. Which is the dumbest thing to say into a fucking open mic ever, because you're implying that you don't think all the other human beings that reside in your city care about their own personal hygiene?
She's the only one.
She's the only one. Here's an interesting thought experiment I was thinking about all those assholes being wrong about all this shit. In the 10 million encounters that have taken place outdoors on bike paths and trails and hiking trails and horse trails between people who are wearing a mask outside and those who chose not to wear a mask outside on the open trail, it is 1,000% to zero the people with the mask shooting the stink eye to the person without the mask and or making some snide comment about putting us all in danger. I've never heard an incident of someone without a mask making fun of a person with a mask. It's only gone that way. And now that the science is borne out, it turns out the ones wearing the mask outside were 100% wrong. So this is a new world order. The side that is 100% wrong is the side doing all the judging.
And
does anyone want to live in that world?
Yeah. Well, here we are. It just says that, I used to say, and it was in mistrial, it was chapter 4, I think. Judge Eidman used to say being a U.S. attorney means never having to say you're sorry. Now it's, being wrong means never having to say you're sorry.
I completely concur. All right. You can find me June 18th, 19th, Golden, Colorado, Buffalo Rose, and Anchorage, Alaska at Coots, everyone, July 3rd, and then Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm doing shows there as well. You can I'm going to
July
Royal Oak Music.
July 4th, I know where you're going to be.
I'm going to be drinking Don Julio in the yard, possibly in your pool.
Exactly. And if Don Julio doesn't step it up, I'm switching over to Casa Amigos, so they better switch it up quick.
Do we have do we have that clip, Gary? Did you find it?
I'm out in the public eye, and I'm a person who I take my personal hygiene very seriously. As I said, I felt like I needed to have a haircut. I'm not able to do that myself.
All right, so hold on a second. So this is basically saying, I'm going to shut down every buffet, and then you just found me at the Sizzler, and I go, well, I like eating. I eat.
I need nutrition. You don't need nutrition?
I like the carving station. I like my beef rare, and I like a little dab of that's what I'm saying. I like food. So you guys don't eat. Because but I do. I mean, just shut up. You got busted. Fucking eat it, you nut job.
It's so she went to the Sheila Kuehl school of. I only went to the restaurant and ate outdoors so that I could warn them that I was shutting them down.
Ugh. Just fucking eat it. All right, what do you got, Mark?
I've got, by the way, stop by Naya in Southampton at the Capri Hotel, open tonight. It'll be wild. Go to the V, Palm Springs, Memorial Day weekend. Also at Casa Tropicana, downtown L.A., Engine Company 28, 10E, Mediterranean Tapas. And if you're in New York City, go by Prova at Grand Central Terminal and at the Moxie Hotel in Times Square.
YouTube.com/Reasonable Doubt podcast. If you want to check out the vids and, of course, Beyond a Reasonable Doubt as well. So until next time, Adam Crow for Mark Garriga saying mahalo.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Tune in next Saturday for an all-new episode.